Another crazy week in covering the Cleveland Browns and their pursuit to building their 2025 roster through free agency, possibly a trade, and certainly through the draft. We'll break it all down. Browns 3D starts now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR. Brought to you by State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service. Cruising through and finishing off here another week of the OBR. The team of writers, just another fantastic week and just a tremendous amount of content the guys put out week in, week out. Great number of views to the site so far this month, and just certainly appreciate it as a whole here from everybody at the OBR. The nightly streaming, you guys keep coming out. The numbers, subscribers, just keep going up and up. We could not be more thankful and more appreciative. Of course, make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube, and of course to the OBR over on Twitch. Never fails, honestly. The second we're done here at Browns 3D, you usually get some sort of Cleveland Browns excitement. And I guess Kirk Cousins walked into a Chipotle in Ohio. And then maybe later, Kirk Cousins was in a barbecue place. Some of you on social media are insane. It cracks me up, man. What you guys, the effort and the lengths you guys will go to dig at this stuff. And, it certainly makes for fun. All the seriousness of breaking down prospects, talking about guys, this, that, and the other thing. And then, you get that Kirk Cousins is in a Chipotle and it dominates the timeline for 3-4 hours. When we were, all of us at the OBR were talking to the Slack channel, my first thing in response was, well, if everybody's trying to connect this to the Browns, who is he talking to? Because we knew there was a good contingent that were settling into Happy Valley last night to have dinner with Abdul Carter and his family. Had gotten word that Coach Stefanski was down in Oxford, Mississippi to watch the Jakson Dart Pro Day. Also, new Browns offensive coordinator Tommy Rees has developed a pretty good relationship with Jakson Dart during the draft process. So my question is who was Kurt essentially going to meet with? And look, maybe there was something there, maybe there wasn't something there. I have no idea. And where tampering would figure in all this, I have no idea, none whatsoever. But as far as what was the best, and look, what did we say the whole time? Best, right? That was a loosely used term. Of the higher named guys available, it seems that Kirk is probably the best one, last one standing that maybe would connect with Cleveland. Kirk, I don't know exactly, what a compensation would look like. And at this point, you have to give them something. I doubt Atlanta just gave Kirk Cousins another $10 million just to release him on June 1st. God, I pray to God they didn't do something of that nature. And that's kind of where it gets me a little bit, because, now you're going to pay a little bit more to Kirk Cousins if that's the case than you originally thought you were going to. I told you 2 days ago with Pete, I told you guys again yesterday, I am not giving up any draft allocation for 2025 in no way whatsoever. We can work on a floor pick for 2026. And obviously with the opportunity of that pick to rise in value, certainly that would have to do on, Kirk Cousins, in the amount of games he plays, how well he plays in those games, certainly probably how well the Browns play, all of those things into that mixture as well. But of what's left of that veteran market, and look, let's be honest, Kirk was one of the top names we were discussing, as far as this veteran, this hole in the opening for a veteran quarterback for the Browns, from the beginning. He was one of the top names, and then maybe we all thought it fell apart when Atlanta picked up the option. We know certainly there's a connection between Kirk and Coach Stefanski, certainly. So if it's something that's going to get done and, with all this talk, from the Cousins camp, and I think, they have a legit fear, that they're going to get, bumped from a starting job in 2025, by a rookie. Now, look, that's going to come down to Kirk, and, Kirk didn't, just have the Falcons decide to play Michael Penix. Kirk just wasn't performing over the last 4 or 5 games that he had started. Atlanta had no choice. They still had a chance to sneak into the playoffs. They had no choice. And looking what Atlanta did, Penix looks like he's going to be a real good quarterback. So, Kirk, and I think I might get bumped out of this gig, And maybe that applies really to did that wording just apply to maybe Tennessee and just maybe to Cleveland, like saying, hey, if you're going quarterback at 1 or 2, me and you, we're not going to jive here. It's just something that's probably not going to work out for the two of us. Now that it seems fully entrenched that Tennessee is going to draft Cam Ward at number 1 overall, if you're still thinking, that it's going to be Shedeur Sanders at 2, I think at this point, guys, you just got to pull your head out of the sand. It seems pretty clear, cut and dry, that it is not going to be Kirk Cousins. It's not going to be Shedeur Sanders getting drafted number 2 overall by the Cleveland Browns. Does that mean Shedeur Sanders is completely out of the running for the Cleveland Browns? No, not necessarily. But, Kirk, the only way you keep your job by playing well, and so if a team like Cleveland says, look, we're not taking a quarterback at 2, but we have a high intention of taking a quarterback maybe somewhere in round 1, maybe at 33, you want to keep the starting job for 2025, Kirk Cousins, play well. It's just that simple. And, kind of having that demand, like, oh, I might lose. I don't want to lose the gig. I don't want to get, railroaded. Well, no, man. And look, you're 37. You got railroad. You didn't get railroaded last year. You just weren't performing well enough. Now you're a year older. I understand pride in professional athletes is a tremendously, tremendously important thing because you never get to even sniff professional sports without being a person, who carries a lot of pride within himself. But, there's also kind of time where you kind of got to look in the mirror and realize that, some of the heat is off your fastball, so to speak. So now Friday, Abdul Carter's pro day, weighed in at 250, 33-inch arms, which was kind of a nice little surprise. I'm going to continue with the Von Miller comparison. Taller, tad bit heavy. Tad bit taller, tad bit heavier. Arms are a tad bit longer. 1 full calendar year younger than Von Miller when Von Miller was drafted very high by the Denver Broncos. The 33-inch arms were a nice surprise. I think it was a little bigger, a little longer. In comparison, 33 is a nice number. It's not an insane number like Myles Garrett with 35.25-inch long arms. But certainly, a nice build, for Abdul Carter. Whether or not we get athletic testing, I honestly don't think matters at this point. And whether or not Abdul has any intention of doing it, I don't know. Spoke said the shoulder feels as good as it's felt from when the injury first happened. Maybe that was just, maybe it's just one of those things where, you didn't want to, test it. And look, who knows what level Abdul Carter is currently working out at. So if he was not gearing up for this pro day or was not working out full, then he and certainly, Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, made the 110% correct call. A, don't go out there if you're not ready and if you're not ready to test to the best of your abilities. And B, if you have not been completely 110% training towards this, it could lead to yet another injury or, aggravate whatever injury he's currently dealing with. Certainly the combine recheck is still very, very much huge for Abdul Carter as far as the stress reaction in the foot, but went out to dinner last night with Jimmy Haslam and with Jimmy Haslam's son-in-law, Andrew Berry. The entire Carter family came out for dinner. It's not odd, no, for a meal like that to take place. It's normally something that does happen with quarterbacks, but it's more so something that normally happens with somebody that is going to go very, very high in the draft. Also, as I spoke on this, where Miles is at in his career now, is where they would hope whoever, I'll just say whoever for, you guys are getting sick of me saying Carter, whoever the selection is at 2. Myles Garrett is currently the face of the Cleveland Browns. When they open up that new building in Brook Park, Jimmy Haslam wants whoever the Browns select at 2 to be Myles Garrett when they go into that new building, into that new facility. So Abdul Carter had his day. Unfortunately, did not get to wow everyone. But the real ones know. Abdul Carter is an absolute freak. I do agree. I forget who put it out there today. Generational is getting a little tired. Generational, it's getting overused. What I have gone with is I believe there are 2 players in this draft right now that you pinpoint and think they can be elite at their position in the NFL on Sundays. 1 is Cam Ward. 2 is Abdul Carter. We'll continue on here. Browns 3D. Certainly appreciate all the support from everybody. We're just, continue to be really excited about our relationship with State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights. If you are local to the Cleveland area, they are your one-stop shop for all things lawn equipment. Listen, you want to spend your Sundays watching the Browns, not cutting your grass. Let the guys at State help you get your weekend back. They specialize in both residential and commercial equipment for Turo, the brand professionals have counted on for more than 100 years. Whether you're looking for a new, dependable time cutter, zero turn, genuine Turo replacement parts, or expert service from experienced technicians who keep your mower in peak condition, State has got your back. Veteran-owned, the Kane family are lifetime Clevelanders, lifetime Browns fans, and proud supporters of us here at the OBR. So again, if you are local to Cleveland, State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights is your hometown team for all your lawn equipment needs. All their info is at statesharp.com. That is STATESHARP.com. And while we're on the subject of Penn State's Pro Day, I do want to note one performance. And I know this is a guy I've spoken with, Pete Smith and I have spoken with a lot from Penn State, and that is Penn State safety Kevin Winston Jr. Kevin Winston Jr. measured in at the combine a little bit over 6'1", 215 pounds, good arm length, a hand size of 9, I want to say. But the problem was Kevin Winston was coming off an ACL surgery. Well, Kevin Winston Jr., less than 6 months from his ACL surgery, ran a 40 today at Penn State's Pro Day. And it was sub 4.5. That is bananas. Absolutely bananas. And I mentioned yesterday as we were closing out, look, we're going to start opening up the avenues here because we need to discuss more positional groups here. Certainly, the Browns have needs everywhere. And so much certainly of, the topic and it has been the quarterback position. And a lot of the time for these episodes have been dominated by the situation with Myles Garrett, of course, and the contract. But there is still a lot of, draft coverage and prospects to discuss here over the next couple of weeks. And we were going to get to them. I mean, we can't sit around and wait for the Browns to give us quarterback news. There are a lot of other topics to be discussed. Certainly one of them is safety. I'm not exactly sure where Kevin Winston slides in just yet. And again, there could be shaping up with the Browns as far as their draft capital, whether it's a trade back, trade up, et cetera, et cetera. But Kevin Winston is a fun looking individual. He will not turn 22 until December. So keep in mind, he would play almost all of his rookie year at only 21 years old, just like Abdul Carter. The Browns, and I will say it again for the 1,000th time, they may step out of their age guardrail a little bit on day 3. They will not do that early. Age is a critical number for this Cleveland Browns front office in regards to drafting players on day 1 and most likely day 2, because you consider 33 right around a first-round pick. And I get some of you, yes, not necessarily a first-round pick, because how many first-round grades are actually on some of these guys. So I trust me, I hear you on that. But Kevin Winston Jr. certainly would be an impressive guy to bring in. And after running the 40 today, the belief, and this came from Field Yates, this information, is that Kevin Winston Jr. should be a full go by summer. So, I mean, you figure he's got almost 4 full months and change before training camp would open. Maybe he's at a little bit of a pitch count, but certainly a really, really intriguing option. Now, we know the Browns have had private workouts with Jalen Milroe. We know they have had private workouts with Cam Ward. They had private workouts with Jakson Dart. They've also had Kevin Stefanski in the house today in Oxford to have their eyes on Jakson Dart. I've spoken on this a lot, and I don't necessarily I'm not sold that it has to be Jalen Milroe. I just think the connections there are very strong and maybe too strong to ignore. But that does not mean that they may think very highly of Jakson Dart. And from Todd McShay, I know he was speaking on this, is just the amount of, I'll just say, balls Jakson Dart has when dealing with direct pressure and either escaping or still standing tall and throwing through pressure, taking the hit, is one of the best traits Jakson Dart has. He's certainly young, still only 21. He's got a really, really strong arm. I don't think people appreciate, the play from Ole Miss this year. So, I think, and kind of where we're segueing with this is, and I told you guys this, that because there were only 2 guys necessarily in contention high in this draft at the quarterback position, and maybe there isn't anymore. When the Browns said they think Cam Ward is the better quarterback, that right there kind of already separated that there wasn't a tier 1 in the quarterback position. Certainly this is for the Browns are concerned. Because otherwise, hey, it would have been good either way. But, I mean, once you said one was better, and, okay, well, then is Shedeur the guy for us at 2? Again, you had a bunch of people that said, well, we just spent how much time telling you that one is definitively better than the other. How and why is our justification to now say it was so narrow, it was so slim that we can take Sanders here at 2? I think it's trending, and I honestly believe this, that, Shedeur Sanders, in my opinion, is probably not going to go in the top 10. I will say I don't think the Cleveland Browns are necessarily off Shedeur Sanders. I just believe that the Cleveland Browns do not view the sticker price of number 2 to be aligned with Shedeur Sanders. Again, now Shedeur Sanders, and this could be really good for him. This could maybe not be so good for him. Next Friday is the Shedeur Sanders Day. That is the Colorado Pro Day out in Boulder. So essentially, Shedeur Sanders is getting last licks. So he can either reinvigorate his stock, or I think this could be somewhat of a bad thing for Shedeur Sanders, and this is just draft related overall, is that everybody's already seen Cam. They've seen Jalen. They've seen Jakson Dart. They've seen McCord. They've seen Will. So by going last, yeah, there's a great opportunity to help himself. But B, he would maybe have to, go even light years higher for, something maybe to change for certain teams. Now, obviously, one of the more popular talking points in relation to the Browns in the draft right now is, taking Carter at 2 and then looking to address the quarterback position, from 33 maybe up. And we've talked about this with the OBR, all of us, and it seems weird in a class that's basically been described as not a very good quarterback class for the potential to be there for 4 of these quarterbacks to go in round 1. So, I mean, if you can find that betting number, and my guess, and look, betting ain't my thing. It's just not something I choose to do. But I would bet the betting number for over under on quarterbacks going in round 1, in my opinion, probably is sitting right there at 3.5. If I was a betting man, I don't know what I would do. I'd probably go under, and I would take the under with the belief that I'm going to lose. Also, maybe I'm saying that because I'm hoping one of these quarterbacks would be there at 33 and Cleveland doesn't have to drastically, give up some capital to move up. Eric Edel, love Eric's work. Now, of course, over with NFL.com. Eric, he had a mock draft out today where the Browns took Abdul Carter at 2. And then for the Cleveland Browns to trade from 33 all the way back up to 15 with the Atlanta Falcons and acquire Shedeur Sanders there. If it is Shedeur, I'm okay with it. It just not at 2. It just never made something, that I thought was, worthy of, 2. 15, that's a large jump, man. That is a large jump, man. You're going from 33 to 15. That's 18 picks in an NFL draft that you're trying to go north on. What does it cost? And, I don't want to give up all of 2025. 5 picks in that top 104. I've been harping on it for months now. I think there's a chance. There's certainly a chance for the Browns to do some serious damage if they draft the correct players within those, 5 in the top 104. Good buddy of mine at Football Sickness, Ryan Burns, he brought up a good point. And his point was, paying that much to go from 33 to 15, then what's the difference than maybe just taking him at 2 or just trading down from 2 to 6, taking him down in the extra capital, going that route? It's just it's a theory. I think the Browns, and I think most teams are of this belief, is that Shedeur Sanders is closer to Jalen Milroe and is closer to Jakson Dart than he is to Cam Ward. And I don't honestly have a problem with, that stance. And I think that's where, Cleveland thinks, they can go the veteran route. I guess at this point, hopefully Kirk Cousins, salad, double chicken, whatever that means. And then come back, with either, a Sanders, a Milroe, or a Dart. Also, one thing I think it tells us that they believe that, Abdul Carter is the real deal. Is that legit? And, it is just to just think of a guy like Abdul Carter playing with a guy like Myles Garrett. I mean, it's just, it gives you chills. And if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. But I would absolutely love to watch just 2 insane former basketball players turned into freaks on football fields, just terrorizing the likes of Joe Burrow, whoever's quarterbacking the Pittsburgh Steelers, and, hopefully minimalizing the dangerousness and the elusiveness of one Lamar Jackson. But look, as we've been talking a little bit this week, we're slowly still here. The Browns have not to this point gotten a lot of work done. This team still is going to bring in 3 quarterbacks between now and the summer. Nick Chubb is not on the roster, so you can't count it. This team still needs 3 running backs. This team needs 1, if not 2, wide receivers, 2 tight ends, an offensive tackle. Perhaps you're going to draft a center, a defensive tackle, a defensive end, Linebacker, I think you're set if JOK is okay. Corner, you have 5 cornerbacks on this roster. 1 was extended off of his rookie deal in Denzel Ward. The next 4 after Denzel Ward were all drafted by the current regime. They'll probably draft a corner because the Browns draft corners. That's what they do. And you certainly need, additional help in the safety room, probably 2 to 3 bodies. This does not all have to come from the draft. But again, the Browns need to start, picking up the activity level a little bit here, as we are now less than 4 weeks from the draft. So certainly something that has to be, the eyes have to be kept on. And, a little pump in the activity here for Cleveland certainly would not be anything to sneeze at. Cam Skattebo had his pro day yesterday for Arizona State. And look, there probably, wasn't a real better individual story, and literally a guy who just threw an entire football team on his back this college football season than Cam Skattebo. Impressed at the combine with a 39-inch vertical. I believe it was 4.65 at his pro day yesterday. Certainly not the number you were hoping for if you're big on Cam, but also not a train wreck of a number either. I think David Montgomery was 4.62, and Cam is 4.65. So certainly a workable number. The reality is he still needs work. If he's going to be, because he's not just going to be handed the job, he's got to be a guy that can, is able to do a little bit of everything. His receiving work still needs obviously a little bit of work. I mean, great story. For me, that is a guy that's most likely, I look at it as day 3. And, it's not going to surprise me if when somebody drafts him outside of the top 100 and gets a pretty good return on their investment. But, that's why all of this stuff matters, and, those little tenths of a second that may help you succeed at the collegiate level also might sink your battleship at the NFL level. But regardless, fun prospect. Everybody certainly got caught up in his season. Everybody certainly got caught up in his Bobby Boucher bowl game-like performance against Texas. And Arizona State's secondary still should have called a correct coverage against 4 verts, but that's another story certainly for another day. But we're getting closer. Certainly, I'm closer to April 24th. I know a lot of people are in the realm of, I'm so tired of the draft. And look, I kind of get it. The OBR is what we do. This is work, So obviously these conversations certainly have to continue for us. But there was no first or second round pick the last few years. The fuck is so, for a lot of us, we haven't had or gotten to have these conversations in 3 years. So, and I think that's one thing I've probably learned in this draft cycle is, how much I missed it. Because, last year, and you guys remember, I had a job at the other place. We had done, a mock draft with all our hosts and picked, and we were doing these all every year. And we were doing these and picking. So, it wasn't very fun saying, oh, well, with the 74th pick. Last year, we absolutely did nail it, though, with the selection of Michael Hall. So, I mean, look, this draft cycle has kind of reminded me how much I miss talking the NFL draft and being able to cover basically every avenue of it. Having the number 2 selection is great. You get to talk about everything and any possibility there is. I don't want to be drafting number 2 again, ever. Start talking 30s, right? It'd be a lot more fun to argue about what prospects could possibly be going 30th, 31st, or 32nd in the NFL draft than, knowing what your team did. And, for the poo-pooers of the, drafting Abdul Carter, the team's automatically going to stink at 2025. Blah, 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 blah. Could you at least let him take the field first? Okay. The work is not done. There is still a lot of work that needs to be done. And we're going to judge the 2025 Cleveland Browns in September. We're certainly not going to do it in March. We are not going to do it in April and May. We're not going to do it in August. We'll start doing all of that in September. Thank everybody, for joining us all here this week. Again, the subscriptions certainly on the OBR on YouTube and the OBR on Twitch just continue to grow. You guys are fantastic. Pouring out every day reading the written content from the fabulous group of writers here at the OBR. Guys, I have a lot of respect for. These guys work. They work well with each other. They try to, basically bounce ideas off each other. It's been a fun experience here for a couple of months now, watching, how the written side, of a site like this does work. So again, thank you, everybody. We greatly, greatly appreciate you all. This is Browns 3D on the OBR. It's been brought to you by State Sharpening, Mower, Sales, and Service. This has been your daily delivery of all things dog pound. And we will talk to you all after the weekend.